How's it going, everybody? Gene here with Entropy & Sons, back with another tutorial video for our synth, the Recursion Studio. Today we're going to be talking about the mapping editor. So, as you guys probably know, there's a bunch of different peripherals that you can plug into the synth, like audio input, MIDI, things like that, and there's a few things you can do with them. And we're going to get into that. So first to start, I've got a video cable plugged in, I got power plugged in, audio plugged in, and I also have a MIDI controller plugged in. It's this little guy right here, which I'm going to be playing around with, but you won't be able to directly see me do that. Anyways, let's get started. So let's swap views real quick. All right, so if you go into the I/O tab, you'll see there's 4 different types of I/O that the device supports: audio, CV input, video input, MIDI input, and we also consider the knobs and the buttons I/O. They don't have their own tab, but they're definitely remappable, and they're sending signals to the synth, and you can kind of control how all that works. So for things like audio, video, and CV, there's actually 2 general ways of kind of integrating that content with the synth. You can either load a module into the module chain / network that's actually directly visualizing the data. For instance, there's like some video visualization modules or some modules that directly render audio waveforms and things like that. But the other option is to go into the I/O mapping editor. And that lets you directly map from input control signals to actions on the synth. The input control signals come in 4 different types: audio, CV, MIDI, and the UI, which is the buttons and the knobs. All right, so we're in the mapping list. There's no MIDI mappings loaded at the moment, so we're gonna go in here and create one. So the idea, this is the mapping editor, and it generally connects signals to actions. So a signal is something that's coming in, like a MIDI control or a MIDI message, information from a CV jack, macros, which are the knobs, and then the buttons on the synth, and then there's a whole bunch of audio information you can put in here too. So the idea is you connect a signal. Let's just do note on. Actually, we'll just go into do learn, and I'm going to tap a button on my MIDI controller, and it is noticed that I've tapped note on. I've sent it a note on with note 36 message. And the idea is you can connect these signals to various actions. So actions come in 3 different flavors. You can either set parameter values in some fashion. You can turn LFOs on and off, and you can do things like load patches and toggle randomization and all that kind of stuff. So let's just turn on an LFO for the parameter. Let's go with this thing right here. And then it comes up with some default values for the LFO. And I'm going to save it. And now we have created a mapping that goes from MIDI note on 36 to toggling a LFO for the width parameter of a sine wave type. And I'm going to tap the button. So now we've turned on an LFO. So we have just created a mapping here. I just tap the button again, so turn it back off. So this is the general idea. You can temporarily disable mappings. So now if I tap the button, it's not going to do anything. Re-enable it. You can manually trigger the mappings. You see right now we're on the tab with the MIDI I/O mappings. If you hit shift, actually no wait, unselect, and you hit shift, it'll actually give you a little selector that'll filter the mapping. So it'll show you all the mappings that are currently loaded. We have some audio mappings. We have mappings for the buttons and the knobs, some CV mappings that are currently disabled, and some macro controls. So we'll go back to MIDI, and we'll just play around with this again. So instead of toggling an LFO, we'll load a patch. And we'll just change the patch to be whatever that one is. We'll save it. And I'm going to tap my MIDI button. There we go. And now it's loading that patch. So this little editor in here is fairly sophisticated. There's a lot of stuff going on. So most signals come with a value, like a CV signal on channel 37 provides a value, which is the value from 0 to 1. Oh, channel 37. Channel is going to be from 1 to 8. So we'll do that. So this is going to listen on CV channel 1, and it's going to set the value of oops, this parameter here, for instance, and it's going to use the value of the input signal. And then there's a whole bunch of other controls here. You can long press on any of these like always and get some help. The help button right here will actually give you a pretty in-depth explanation of what's going on here. Yeah, I think that's the general idea. So you have MIDI signals, CV signals, you have some audio signals. Let's map the volume, the current audio volume level, to this fade control. Let's see what happens here. And now the actual like brightness of the final image is being mapped directly from the audio volume. So no IO controls because we're on the MIDI tab. Now we're on audio. And that's this control right here. So we can disable it and we'll see that that stops. Or re-enable it. You can use a variety of different audio signals. There's actually several pages of these. This is all explained in the manual and a little bit of information by holding down here. But that's the basic idea. It's a pretty powerful editor. It lets you basically connect an arbitrary number of input signals to an arbitrary number of output actions. And there's advanced things like delays and probability and all kinds of stuff like that you can do in here. So I think that's it for this video. I think in the next sequence of videos, we're going to start diving into the individual instruments on the synth. So stay tuned.